Have you ever been using an app, maybe Instagram or your iPhone settings, and wondered how it perfectly remembers every single screen you visited? You tap back and back and back, and it retraces your steps flawlessly. Well, that's not magic. It's the iOS navigation stack, and we're about to break down exactly how it works.
I mean, really think about it. You dive deep into your settings. You tap General, then you go to About, then you check your storage. When you hit that back arrow, it doesn't just kick you out to the beginning. Nope, it takes you back one single step at a time. So how on earth does it do that?
Well, believe it or not, it's all thanks to a really elegant system working behind the scenes. So let's pull back the curtain.
Yeah, that seamless experience, that feeling of just flowing forward and backward through an app, is all managed by one core component that is always on the job. All right, it's time to meet the hero of our story, the component that manages this entire journey for us.
It's called the UINavigationController. You can basically think of it as a special kind of box that holds all your app's screens. And its whole job, its entire reason for being, is to manage those screens in a very specific order. And the best part? This thing is like your personal assistant. It handles so much of the grunt work for you. That navigation bar you see at the top of most apps, it does that. That little back button that just appears out of nowhere, that's it too. It even handles the slick animations when you move between screens. As a developer, you don't have to build any of that from scratch.
So, okay, what's the secret sauce here? How does it juggle all these screens without ever dropping one? Well, the secret is a really simple but incredibly powerful concept, the stack. It all comes down to a principle called LIFO. That stands for last in, first out. Just imagine a stack of plates. When you add a new plate, you put it on top. And when you need a plate, where do you take it from? The top. The last plate you put on is the first one you take off. Your app screens work in exactly the same way.
Every single one of these navigation journeys has to start somewhere, right? In our stack, that very first screen is called the root. It's the foundation, the ground floor of our entire navigation path.
Now, to actually work with this stack of screens, there are really only two main actions you need to know. The first is push, which is when we add a new screen to the top of the stack. The second is pop, which is when we remove the top screen to go back. That's it, push and pop. So let's walk through it. You're on that first screen, the root. You tap a button to see some details. What happens? The navigation controller performs a push operation, and boom, that new details screen is placed right on top of the stack. And if you decide to go even deeper, maybe you tap to see the comments on that details page? You guessed it, we just push again. The stack gets a little taller, and the app now shows you the comments screen because it's the new top of the stack. This is the last in part of LIFO in action. Okay, but what happens when you hit back? Well, the controller does the opposite. It performs a pop. It literally just removes the top screen from the stack, which then reveals the screen that was right underneath it. Simple, right?
Now, theory is great, but what does this look like in the actual code? You're going to love how surprisingly simple this is.
So let's say we want to add a new screen, right? We want to push it onto the stack. Well, the code to do this is pretty much a direct translation of that thought.
Get this, you literally just find your navigation controller and tell it to push a new view controller. You can even tell it to animate the transition. It's one line of code. That's all it takes to move forward in an app.
And what about going back? Well, 99% of the time, that automatic back button handles it for you. But if you ever need to trigger it yourself in your code, well, the command is exactly what you'd expect.
Yep, you just tell the navigation controller to pop the current view controller. It takes care of removing the screen from the stack and animating you back to the previous one. It's beautifully simple.
Okay, so we've got the what and the how down. But let's zoom out for a second. Why is this one pattern so incredibly important in the world of app design?
Well, for starters, this stack model is absolutely perfect for any app where you drill down into content, like going from an inbox to an email to an attachment. It creates this super predictable and intuitive path that we as users just get. And because the system handles all the complex logic, developers can spend their time building amazing features, not reinventing the wheel for navigation. And I'm not kidding when I say this is fundamental. In fact, this is probably the #1 most common topic that comes up in technical interviews for iOS developer jobs. So look, nailing this concept isn't just an academic exercise. It's essential, practical knowledge you need to build great apps. And frankly, it's a huge signal to employers that you really know your way around the iOS world. And that's really it. That's the navigation stack in a nutshell. It's a super simple idea, last in, first out, that powers the user experience in some of the most complex and beloved apps on the planet. So now that you know the rules of the game, what clever navigation can you build?